Hey everyone, it's Boris Kirchner here, and I am so glad to be back. It's been about 3 years since I last did one of these videos, and man, it feels good to come here and hang out with you again and to share this time, share this journey, share these insights. And before we jump into today's topic, I just want to give an amazing thanks to my friends who, without them, I probably wouldn't be back on here. But time after time, they kept encouraging me and asking me, and hey, are you going to jump on there? Where's your next video? What's you going to do? And it's so good. It just feels so good to have people in our lives that reflect back to us our deepest desires, our deepest longings, and our deepest passions, and don't let us kind of slip away into just getting the to-do list accomplished and ignoring our purpose and our vision and why we're really here. So with that said, let's dive into something very, very important. This subject that I want to talk about today is probably the most essential hurdle to overcome in order to really actualize our fullest potential in terms of our capacity to love, our capacity to enjoy life, our capacity to be fully what we were created to be, which is creators, which is like this amazing emanation of divine potential. And what happens to us, one of the first caps that we put on that is that we put this power, this amazing power plant that we've been gifted with, which is our own consciousness, the power of our own consciousness. We take that power and we project it somewhere onto the world. And we say, in essence, we say to the world, well, if you are like this, then I am like this. And this mechanism that we're talking about, really, this is the mechanism of blame. And we say, oh, because it's like this, because the weather is like this, I'm feeling down. Because my girlfriend said this to me, or my boyfriend did that to me, I just don't feel like I can ever recover. And this capacity in us to blame, which is another way, if we can really create a shift here today, is we need to understand that blame is not something that lets us off. It's something that traps us, sometimes for our whole lifetime. You'll see people who have spent their whole lives and they haven't gotten over some past hurt that happened 20, 40, 30 years ago, whatever it is. But we have to understand that these things are not here now. Now, yet, why does this pattern keep repeating? What is the pin that's keeping blame in place? The pin that's keeping blame in place is this capacity of the mind to continuously generate meaning. What does it mean to generate meaning? It means that I look out at the world, I see a certain set of appearances, and I say, this is what it means about me. Essentially, any meaning that you create is about you. Whether I think, this camera that I'm looking at, is it good? Is it bad? All of these things, no matter if I say, oh, this is a really amazing high-end camera. Oh, maybe I feel good about myself. This is great, I have such a camera. I say, oh, no, it could be better. I would like it to be. And I always, of course, I'm going to feel a certain way about myself. Sometimes this is super subtle when you're talking about something far away and you're giving your opinion and position. Everything that you have an opinion on, you have a meaning about. And everything that you have a meaning about, that meaning really is pointing back to you. So one thing that we have to wake up to is this meaning-making capacity that is really running on default. You've not created that meaning that you have about sunny weather or rainy weather. You haven't created that meaning that you have about this ethnicity or that ethnicity. What's really happened is that we downloaded this from our past, whether it's our parents' fears and discombobulations, whether it's the society's neurosis, or whether it's our own trauma that we run into. Each one of these is creating these impressions on our consciousness. And when we look out onto the world, we don't actually see the world. I don't see this, blank canvas, which is essentially creation, just oozing into manifestation and all the majesty and amazing miracle that it is. Well, no, what I see is a tree. And what that means to me is everything that I've experienced about trees in the past. Maybe I like them, maybe I don't like them, maybe I like this certain kind of tree and not that kind of tree. Why? All because we've been indoctrinated without our consent in a way, without our conscious consent anyway. At least at this level of consciousness, it's not, so there's some beliefs that perhaps we've predestined or pre-written all of this. Well, I'm not so sure that that's happening from a conscious and clear place. It sounds to me more like, as we look out into the world, it's happening from a karmic debt perspective. Now, we've created these certain events to pay off our certain karmic debt, but essentially we're still in the wheel of suffering, and we're still in the wheel of unconscious bumping around in the dark. So the first place that I want you to reclaim your power is in this place of meaning making. Recognize that everything that we have a meaning for, and you have a meaning for everything that you know, let's say, what is this? This, as soon as I know that this is a cell phone, everything that I know about cell phones, all my past experiences with cell phones, everything that I've ever heard or experienced about cell phones as a concept gets projected onto this one. And now I get to compare and contrast and look at the different functions and the different things. Does it work well? Does it not work well? Why do I like it? Why don't I like it? All of it is coming from the past. So our challenge to overcome blame, we have to realize, first of all, it's not going to just disappear. You're going to blame people, I guarantee you, whether it's tonight, tomorrow, or a month from now. If you're super enlightened, it's a month from now. You're going to end up blaming somebody, or something, for the way that you feel or the way that you think. So the first step is not to blame yourself for blaming people, which is what the mind tends to do when it's first introduced to this concept. What we have to do is become aware. Awareness itself is that healing balm that starts to disintegrate and dissolve. What is it dissolving? Really, it's dissolving delusion and illusions. It's dissolving wrong thinking and wrong view. So, as soon as you have been taken over, in a way, by this need or this urge for blame, as you can see it arising in you, or even as it's already taken fruition, you can take a pause and recognize, what is actually happening. Oh, okay, so I've given this set of circumstances a certain meaning, a negative meaning, a meaning that really takes away from me. What is this meaning based on? And you might say, okay, let's take a look. Actually, this meaning comes from the past. If I was just popping into this moment fresh as a newborn baby, would I really give the same meaning to this event? Most of the time, not. Unless somebody's, bashing you over the head with something, most of the time, it's ourselves bashing ourselves inside the head with our own meaning and interpretation. So, first question to ask is, am I giving this experience the meaning that it has for me? You're always going to find that the answer is yes. And you might say, where's this meaning coming from? The reason we're asking this is we want to actually recognize what's happening. We want to learn about this particular mechanism that hijacks us. So where's this meaning coming from? You have to again take a pause and really realize that this meaning is coming from my past experiences, my own past trauma, indoctrination, teachings, whatever it is. It's not here. It's happened before, and these impressions are now being projected onto this experience. And the next thing I want you to ask is this, is this interpretation, this meaning, is it coming out of peace? Is it coming out of love? Or you may say that question differently. Is it nurturing peace? Is it nurturing love? Is it nurturing joy? Is it nurturing fulfillment? In other words, is it giving me some level of true satisfaction, true happiness? And as you run it by this criteria, of course, if you're blaming somebody, you're going to see that it isn't doing that at all. So what's our way out? The way out is, after you've examined this with these 4 questions, what you need to do is kind of take a step back and evaluate, do I want to keep this meaning as my default? And if you've answered these 4 questions, you're going to come to a natural conclusion that, no, I don't. I don't want to keep this. And at that point, you've created that first possibility at letting go, surrender, which is the most powerful spiritual, psychological, emotional, mental tool for us. Because in essence, love, compassion, joy, divinity is what's at the core of us. Everything else has been plastered on. And this process of letting go, this process of surrender, this process of clarification of the body and the mind is the only thing that needs to take place for us to really step into that fullness of life that we've always dreamed of, we've always longed for, that fullness of our own potential, satisfaction of being freely and fully ourselves. So, after answering these questions, you can come to this moment of choice. Am I willing to let it go? And as you ask yourself that again and again. There'll be moments when you're willing. There'll be moments when you're not willing. And when you're not willing, here's another little trick. I want you to imagine that someone's holding a gun to your head and saying, I'm going to blow your brain out. And if you're willing to let this go, I'm going to let you go. And if you're not willing to let this go, I'm going to pull the trigger. So if I had a gun to my head, would I be willing to let this go? Now, this may be a really intense image, but would you? And in essence, it's always like that because it's really a question of life or death. In other words, it's a question of liberation or suffering. So is this particular meaning, this particular blame, this particular way of interpreting the situation, is it worth giving up your freedom for? And this is perhaps the master question that helps me just about each time that I remember to ask it. Am I willing to let this event pass by in exchange for my freedom? Or do I want to give my power, my freedom away and tie myself to this event? Is it worth my freedom? Is it worth my happiness? So next time that you face some experience where you're feeling contracted and you say, oh, I'm contracted because of this, stop and ask yourself this question, or this set of questions. First of all is, where's this meaning coming from? And you identify that I'm giving this situation the meaning that it has for me. And you say, where's this meaning capacity coming from? Like, how do I know that it means these things? And you'll see that it's coming from the past. Everything that I have to say about this is coming from my past impressions. Is that really the judge of truth? Probably not. And then I want you to go on and ask, is this interpretation helpful? Is it coming from peace? Is it cultivating peace? Is it coming from love? Is it cultivating love? Whatever question there resonates for you, is this interpretation supportive of my vision, of my happiness, of my fulfillment? As you ask these questions, you're going to progressively take yourself deeper and deeper and closer to this choice point of being able to let it go. And then you ask yourself the last question, am I willing to pay the price of letting this situation be exactly as it is in exchange for my freedom? Am I willing to let this, loss be a loss or whatever it is, and just let it go in exchange for my freedom? One amazing example that I want to share with you just before we wrap up is I was listening to this Audible book recently, and it's called The Untethered Soul, and I highly recommend that book. And one of the examples that it gave there is that it said, let's say somebody stole your pencil, or let's say even before that, your pencil just disappeared from your work desk. And now each time you go to grab that new pencil, you say, oh, somebody just somebody stole my pencil. If I don't watch out, they're gonna take, my computer next, and maybe they're gonna take my wife next. And the mind creates this whole melodrama, this whole like amazing soap opera where lots of emotions get tugged. And so in that situation, you have to ask yourself, am I willing to pay the price of a pencil in exchange for my freedom? Is my freedom worth giving away that pencil? When you come to this place and you're able to answer, of course it isn't. Of course I would rather choose my freedom. That capacity of surrender is automatically engaged. All you have to do at that point on is just notice, no, I want my freedom instead. And you let it go. You take a deep breath and you let it go. Okay,